without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves, and then I will go about asking a few questions. We have 3 questions we've already let the panelists know that we're going to ask them. And then after that, we're going to open it up for you to be able to ask questions. If you could email your questions to Nick Rogers, he will take the questions and let me know what the questions are so we can go from there. He can kind of monitor the question box. So if you want to let's get started. Victoria, if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Victoria Parker. I am a second year master's PhD student in the Department of Agricultural Sciences, Education, and Communication. My research focuses on the study abroad experiences of Black students.
Thank you, Victoria. And Carrie?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kerry Walls. I am a junior here at Purdue, studying psychological sciences with a minor in human development and family studies. I am the president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People unit here on campus, as well as the treasurer and secretary for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Thank you, Carrie. And Miracle?
How you doing, everybody? My name is Miracle. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I am a super senior here on campus studying anthropology, specifically cultural anthropology. I also minor in political science, and I am the former president of the Queer Students of Color on campus.
Excellent. Okay, so whoever wants to get started first, I know the questions we had sent ahead of time. One of them was, what experiences have galvanized you toward action and advocacy?
I can go ahead and start this one off. For me, just being a Black man has really influenced me to want to better those around me. So that way, when we're out here in this world, we can still feel safe in our own skin. We don't have to worry about going out here and having to watch our backs. Growing up, my mother always taught me that I have 2 targets on my back. I'm a Black man and I'm a smart man at that. And so going out here in this world with that type of preparation is very unfortunate. You oftentimes have to miss out on opportunities because you just have to watch your back a lot. Um, and then, in addition to that, I got started with the NAACP at a very young age. So just seeing the different things that not just Indiana State Conference did as a whole, but just NAACP Youth in College did, definitely made me want to pursue advocacy as I'm developing as a young man myself.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Carrie.
Yeah, similar to Carrie, it's from personal experiences, honestly. Seeing the barriers that I had being a first generation college student has motivated me to want to assist other, Black students who are first gen or Black students in general, because we have so many barriers for us in higher ed. So my personal experience has motivated me to, want to make the path easier for Black students that come after me.
Excellent.
Yeah, so as somebody who is a Black person as well as a queer person openly, it's a very difficult thing to navigate this intersection of sexuality and gender, um, as well as being a person of color, especially a black person. That's not always interchangeable. So you know, people of queer people have a very high mortality rate here in America, specifically, especially homeless. They have a high rate of homelessness as well. So on campus, it can be very, very difficult to navigate all of these risk factors, as well as being somebody who is noticeably different than the status quo. So that really kind of lit a fire under me as to try to advocate for my people who share my identities, people who don't share my identities. Um, so yeah.
Excellent. Okay, our second question that we had ready for all of you today is, what issues are you engaging in right now in this year, in this era that we're in?
Okay, I'll go. So right now I am working on initiatives with the Honors College on a study abroad initiative to get more underrepresented minorities interested in study abroad. But due to COVID, study abroad won't be occurring until probably winter time. But I decided to be a part of these initiatives because I went on to study abroad during my undergrad, and it was like life changing for me. And being a first gen college student, it was kind of out of the ordinary for my family for me to go abroad. So other Black students encounter those similar barriers with their family. So just trying to get them more aware of study abroad. And then also I'm a part of the MAP team, which is mentoring at Purdue. So what I do is I reach out to HBCUs and try to partner with them to get students more exposed and interested in graduate school, and show them that graduate school can be for them. Because in undergrad, we typically think that undergrad is as far as we can go in higher ed. But with my position, I try to inform them that you can get your master's, you can get your PhD. It is possible for you to go beyond a bachelor's. So that's the main initiative I'm a part of right now.
Awesome. Good for you. That's amazing.
So
yeah, okay, Carrie.
you got it. You go ahead.
So I do want to say it's never too late to take a break. I'm currently on activist hiatus, as it were. But a lot of my research, anthropologically speaking, is regarding representation in media, specifically in video games. So how cultures are misrepresented, people of color and minority cultures are misrepresented in video games, and then used as kind of like this human zoo, um, as it were, in this medium, which is kind of activist in and of itself, right? It's not, you
Yes.
never really take a break. But otherwise, I'm just a lingering mentor for any young queer student who needs it. So they know that my phone is always open, my email and my texts are always open if they have an issue on campus that they haven't interacted with yet or encountered yet, because more than likely I have encountered it, and so I can help them navigate that.
I never thought about video games. Like that's something that when you said that, I thought, oh, wow. I'm not a big video game person in myself, but you think of the video game world and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so right. That really just opened my eyes right there. And Carrie.
Yeah, so one of the main things, I was actually on a call prior to this one. We were discussing how do we continue to advocate for not just youth in college, but just the African American diaspora, while still making sure that we're holding ourselves sustainable, because there's a lot going on that is affecting Black people as a whole. So whether it just be COVID or whether it just be the borderline race war or anything like that, how can we still cultivate the younger generation to strive to be the best advocates that they can be, but at the same time keeping ourselves sane? So that's really been where my partner and I have just been trying to figure out how can we maybe reach out to different units across our region better. How can we engage with them to let them know, like, yeah, we're here and I understand we can't do all the different things that we used to be able to do just back in into 2019, early 2020, but still pushing out the mission and fulfilling the mission of the NAACP. That's one of our things. And of course, the NAACP stretches across a wide variety of issues, whether it be health, environmental, climate justice, just policy change in general, of course, financial literacy, like all the different types of stuff that the youth in college covers. So it's hard to pinpoint a specific thing to work on because it's like more so a lot of different tasks going on at one time.
Absolutely. I kind of just want to pause for a moment because I think our students have shared a lot of information in those first two questions that we've asked. And I want to see if anybody has any questions based on what they've told us already. Nick, do you have any questions that people have sent to you yet?
Not yet, not that I have seen, but people can feel free to put them in the chat, or send them directly to me, as they have them.
Okay. So our third question that we had prepared for the students is, how are platforms for advocacy and outreach evolving? Or are they? How much have we evolved?
I would definitely say that they are evolving, just because of TikTok. Like, for example, just as one example, you make I think maximum 60-second video encompassing all different types of information or whatever. If you make it funny, if you make it sad, like as long as you do something to capture an audience, it will reach a different audience because it'll just continue to get shared and shared and shared. So with that method of action, you really are limitless to what you can convey to different audiences. And then social media, just in general, people are getting famous on a daily basis. So it's like, if you just reach out to the right people, then anything can really be pushed out, which can be a bad thing. But in this like advocacy for the right things, it can just be a blossoming type of idea.
Excellent.
I would say Zoom has been a major thing. I know everyone's all zoomed out. But Zoom has been extremely helpful. I know last semester I did about 6 visitations with Dr. Morris and Dr. Duncan with 1890 land-grant universities. And that allowed us, to reach out to so many more students, because typically we would fly out there and, that can be expensive and that can be time consuming, but doing it virtually from my home, I'm able to reach out to more students. And I feel like moving forward, we will utilize technology more. Honestly, you don't always have to, although I do genuinely miss interacting with students in person and having more deeper conversations, but I feel like Zoom has been extremely helpful during this time, and we'll probably utilize that a lot more when we're unable to fly out, to Delaware or to Alabama and things like that. So COVID, it showed us that we can take a different approach with recruitment. And I feel like Zoom is that number one thing that that has definitely helped us do better with recruitment.
Great point.
As somebody who just like studies technology on a regular basis, it's I think the biggest thing that I can take away from it is that activism doesn't have to look like the what people think activism looks like, which is the massive gathering of people, or even a TikTok video that's informing you of something, right? It can look like just a depiction of somebody's point of view. It can be it can be a plot point. It can be all these different types of things. And people, some folks are like, why are they putting politics in my TV show, in my video game? Because people recognize that this is an actual issue, but they just don't want to accept that it is an issue, or people are happy for representation of an issue that's trying to make a point, but making it more palatable as an entertainment, as a form of entertainment, which is really weird to say. Is like, oh, this issue is entertainment, but it's a way to transform something from the real world into something that which people don't, sometimes people just really don't care about, into something that is a form of escapism, that people are like, okay, wait, so this is real world something. um so that's why I do a lot of video game stuff, is because that is occurring more and more. even in like little games that like last 5 minutes, games that last, over 100 hours. So it's going to, I want to say it's the same thing, just a different mode uh, of trying to tell a story, but it really isn't. It's just kind of repeating itself in a cycle in just new ways. So that's it's actually a lot of fun, um, and kind of tragic every once in
Yeah.
a while.
So I don't know if we've had more questions come in, but I thought of a couple questions as we were going through things. So I don't know if any of you were able to catch yesterday. We had BIPOC farmers on yesterday on our talk. And one of the instances, and I guess I want to see where you feel where we're at with maybe something that pertains directly to you. I'm a white heterosexual woman, so I understand my white privilege. I understand the privileges I have. I want to advocate and I want to help. And the only way I feel like I can do that is to learn through, students, through faculty, through staff, through my friends, through the environment. But yesterday, what really struck me, and I actually was glad my camera was off because tears started streaming down my face when one of the farmers told us that starting in April, and it was a little bit before, that she's an African American African American female running a farm in Indy, and people are going by and trashing them. They are stepping on the plants as they're growing. They're throwing trash at things. They're vandalizing. They're not stealing anything. They're just vandalizing to try to dehumanize this person from doing something that is essentially a white man's world for farming. So I just I don't close myself off. I don't have a blind eye, but it really just shocked me that in today's world, especially, that we are still experiencing so much of this right here in just little old Indiana, let alone outside of that. So maybe what are some of the things that you're facing, and how can maybe we as faculty and staff, no matter what color, no matter what gender, how do we help you? I
uh,
kind of put a lot out there, so.
yeah. Um, I I do want to say that a lot of people, that doesn't, the story, as tragic as it is, doesn't surprise me,
Mhm.
right? It's very heartbreaking, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Even I can just imagine it happening, and just be like, well, another day, right? I think a lot of people, and I was talking on a panel yesterday, uh, a lot of faculty that I've interacted with in Indiana is very conservative, right? Which is very much the reason that I wanted to advocate as much as I did, because I do benefit from colorism, right? So I'm a very light skinned person. And so I wanted to use that privilege that I have, to advocate for my folks. But a lot of faculty members underestimate our capabilities as people of color, as Black people, um, as LGBTQ people, because we're not a part of this status quo. And then if we are beating those expectations of not doing well, and we're doing, we're successful, we're thriving, we'll face issues where they're going to put us down and say, see, you can't do this. It's like, well, I could do this before you came and ruined everything for me, right?
Right.
And so it's that. But what I can say is that y'all have the privilege of stepping in and advocating for us in a way that's like, okay, if I come to you and say this professor is doing this to me, then you can step in and say this is not okay, and go to the right people. Because if I go to the right people, more than likely there's going to be a chance that they're not going to listen to me, just because of the way that I look, or just because of the way that I present, or my sexuality, or my gender, or whatever, right? That's you'll have the probability of them listening to you be like, hey, this student, right? And then they're
Yeah.
going to feel bad. And you can guilt them or whatever, into saying, okay, well, I can't look racist in front of this other faculty member. I can't look homophobic or transphobic, right? Um, so I would just say to open yourself up as far as you possibly can, as much as you possibly can, to students who are in a minority. So much so that they can recognize that they can come to you. I'm going to be honest, I don't always trust white folks. That's just,
Sure.
I don't always trust
Sure.
white people.
Absolutely. I get that. I get it.
I'm not saying that to like, undermine any of y'all's, advocacy that you already done. But if you make it more obvious, then I can be like, or other people that I know trust you to handle the situation, then you build up your trustworthiness in that way.
Sure.
So
Sure.
it's like putting in work other than just sitting in your office and having like a rainbow flag up or Black Lives Matter or whatever. It's more
Yes.
than that.
It's getting out there and being that voice and letting people know that you want to hear from them. You want to be a voice when they can't be a voice for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, as a Black woman in agriculture, I remember I was at Kansas State one summer for a research program, and my advisor, she informed me she's a Black woman as well, and she told me, Victoria, you're Black and you're a woman. That's two strikes against you in a white male dominated, career field. And it didn't really settle into me until I got to Purdue and I realized, like, okay, this is, how agriculture really is coming from an HBCU. It's, more predominantly Black. So being in this white space, it can be, uncomfortable. And even when I go to certain agriculture conferences, it's predominantly like white males. And, I'm a Black woman, so I stand out and I get looks sometimes, but, it is what it is. But I feel like the College of Ag needs to put more spotlight on like intersectionality and the multiple identities that people hold within the College of Ag, and draw more attention to that and understand the hardships that people go through in agriculture. And I remember last year, Dr. Tori Crops, she held a class on critical perspectives in agriculture. And that brought a lot of light to the different perspectives of agriculture, from the perspective of a Black farmer, a Native American farmer, a Latino farmer, these different perspectives that we don't typically see in textbooks, unfortunately, because sometimes, our history, BIPOC history, is kind of hidden from agriculture, to be honest with you. And I feel like the College of Ag needs to bring more spotlight to, the barriers and hinders of agriculture for non-white students, and just, just expose people to the things that people have had to overcome to be in agriculture, to succeed, and all the, trying times that we've overcome to still be here.
Victoria, can I just respond to you briefly?
Yes.
This is Dr. Fields. I'm in the Department of Botany and Plant Pathology, and I just want you to know that there are people in agriculture that are here to support you. I actually worked for a large agriculture company before coming to Purdue, and I will say this: certainly we are rare in agriculture. I can say that there are some universal things that people understand. They understand when you're good at what you do, and they understand when you are just kind. So those two things, I think, have kind of made it a little bit more equal when working in a male dominated field that is also white male dominated. When I graduated with my PhD, my school told me I was the only African American female in the area of plant breeding and genetics in the nation at the time. I really haven't seeing a whole lot of progress in that area, but in our department, we're really working to lay down the pathway to recruit more talented people of all backgrounds. But I just wanted to respond to you and let you know that I am here at Purdue. And if you ever need anything or just want to talk through some strategies to be able to deal with being a Black woman in agriculture, I'm certainly here for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Phil.
You're welcome.
Carrie, did you want to respond to my question or no? Or do you think everything's kind of been hit on? You don't have to.
Yeah, they definitely touched on everything I would have said, so you're good.
Okay. All right, perfect. I do have a question in the chat box. The question is, what forms of activism do you think make a real lasting change?
I would say doing advocacy that will benefit someone else, not advocacy that will benefit you, that makes you look good. And this is my first time ever using the word advocate. I don't consider myself an advocate. I just feel like I'm doing what God told me, put me here to do, because He's given me so many amazing opportunities that other Black people don't get the opportunity to have. So I just feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's why I don't, everything I do it for the betterment of the students. Even if it's for free, like I'll still, take time out of my busy schedule as a grad student to do like better other students. And I just feel like you have to be passionate about it and you have to be true with it and do it because you really feel like this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, definitely piggybacking off what Victoria said. Because even from a spiritual standpoint, scripture tells us, iron sharpens iron, a man sharpens another man. So on the topic of being an advocate, yes, I do call myself an advocate, but I call myself that, but God called me to be that, you know what I'm saying? And so, but as far as to the question of what form of advocacy, it's kind of hard to pinpoint because by whatever means necessary is how I like to operate. So by whatever means necessary to get that change that you're willing to see, so long as it's for the betterment of man and in reverence to God's will, do what you need to do. So I wouldn't really be able to put a solidified, like this or anything like that, 1-2 step plan as far as like what that advocacy would be like the model.
Sure.
Yeah, from a non-spiritual standpoint, because I, very ironically, ready for some irony, I'm an atheist, even though my name is Miracle. It's fine, it's whatever. But I think personally, it all has to do with tangibility. If you're just saying something just to say something, those are just words going out in the ether, right? It's just something to say. But showing up means different things in different in different areas. You have there's a variability to all types of activism and advocacy, and being prepared for that is very, very important. And I do want to say that it's not going to look the same for each of y'all. Um, Activism looks different for every person depending on what their environment is, kind of a nature versus nurture type of thing. As a Black woman, it's going to look different. As a Black man, it's going to look different. As a queer person, it's going to look different. And keep that in mind going forward, because there are just some things that you are limited to. There are scopes that you are limited to, just because, a lot of things, and I hate to use it, and I don't think it's always right, but a lot of things are limited to respectability, right? Especially if you're going into a professional like situation. Um, so I would just say look for a result of some sort that that's something that you can actually look upon and reflect on. It's an instance of an event that's actually happening. um, and then two, just make sure that you're putting in the work. It's gonna be tiring. This is not relaxing work. I'm saying I'm on hiatus. It's for a reason, right? I'm doing some
Right.
mental health work and some like
Good for
personal
you.
personal stuff. But that's because it's so exhausting, right? Living is so exhausting. It's not gonna be easy at all. And so prepare for that. If you feel tired out and you feel like, "Ooh, that was a lot," then you're more than likely on the right track. Now, that's not to say it was like, "Oh, this is so exhausting. I advocated for one person. That was just, you're like, okay, keep going,"
Sure.
right? But something that you go to sleep at night still thinking about, and that's how you know, kind of, that you're doing something.
Excellent. I've got some questions coming in to me here. Some of them are to everyone and some of them are privately. So I'm going to go to this private one first, and then we can start answering the ones from everyone. So this one is kind of almost like a two-part question, two or three questions in one. So if and when you need me to repeat it, let me know. So this person says, I feel as though Purdue has tried to increase diversity on our campus for years now. From my perspective, I have not seen much improvement. Do you personally think that there has been improvement in this area? If not, how can we as students, faculty, as school, etc., help Purdue be a rich, culturally, ethnically diverse campus? Are there any practical ways that students can help? Sometimes I feel helpless in this area.
Um,
So
Yeah.
Yay, everybody's ready.
No,
Wow.
they-
Let me chime in here for just a moment. I've been here for 2 years, and I was so excited actually. Was it last year or the year before, when we had new diversity leader come on aboard? The initial push was really great. The conference was great, but I can't say that I see a significant impact of that push from the higher level of the university. To me, that's a bit concerning. I think that the student experience is always going to be the best advertisement for any university. And so I'm sort of like a grassroots type of person. There almost has to be some advocacy or support for students in every department in order to begin to allow it to flourish as a university. And I mean, you kind of see this kind of action when you look at elections and things like that. It really is the bottom up approach that seems to work more effectively. So, across the university, I do wonder, like, I know some things that we're beginning to work on in our department, and it literally is simply education and recruiting. I think that if you are able to, one, share with people what it is that you do, and then two, provide an opportunity and an environment for support where they can flourish, you'll tend to see that change. But again, students are going to be the best advertisement for any university, and the fact that a student feels comfortable here as a diverse student versus not really does impact the overall picture.
Thank you,
yeah,
Dr. Fields.
you definitely bring up a great point, as far as students having to be basically that first conversation. But from that, the issue is the fact that we're not having a good experience here on campus. I won't speak for everybody, but just for some people that I know, and even myself, just from when, and I know this was 2019, but I'll never forget just the language that was used by our president of our university when he called African American scholars rare creatures. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I understand what he was trying to get at, but it's all about what you said and like the impact that your words have. That's always what I was taught. I don't know about everybody else, but that's how I was taught. You have to watch what you say. You have to realize that that's not okay. And then speaking to, I believe the second half of the question was, what can we do? That
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's a go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If not, how can we as students, faculty, a school help Purdue be a rich, culturally, ethnically diverse campus? Are there any practical ways that students can help? Yeah.
That honestly comes down to like retention rates, recruitment rates. Really, where is Purdue really appealing to on these different high school campuses across not just Indiana but the nation as a whole? Why is it that Purdue's Black undergrad student population has gone down rather than increasing over the years? In which I believe now it sits at just right under 3% still. And I've been here, this is my junior year, and it's been at that same rate ever since. So it's like, what is Purdue not doing that is not appealing to the Black students? And I've told other Black students, like, yes, Purdue is a great school, but if you're wanting to get a full college experience where you can have fun, have a breather and stuff like that, you can see other Black people and stuff like that and be comfortable on campus, Purdue is not the place for you. I've straight up told people that because yes, I have my Black friend group. Yes, we have the BCC and things like that, but let's keep it real. We don't see each other on campus, and that's not because we're in different majors. There just isn't a lot of us, and that's just really what it comes down to.
I think it's eliminating the obstacles that we put in the way of Black students too, as well, to applying to the university, to even getting out and talking to them, to help them maybe starting in their freshman, sophomore year, to get them up to where they're able to apply in their junior and senior year.
Yeah, I do have to say that a lot of my interaction with other Black students has come from activism, which sucks. um just imagine the only time that you really get to see your fellow man is like to tackle something that's really weighing on you. So like Carrie and I, for example, we actually met over the CVS incident, right? And if you guys don't remember the CVS incident, it was where a Puerto Rican student tried to get an over-the-counter medication and then was denied 3 times with 3 different identifications, asking for their immigrant papers, right? And so that was a major thing that happened about 3 years ago now, Carrie. I don't remember, 2 years ago.
2 years.
About like two,
2 years ago.
2019.
Yeah, because that
Yeah.
was when, I mean, he told, like, Miss Daniels, we were advocating for this and we put on town halls and we did all this stuff. We talked to the director of diversity and inclusion, who's also a Black gay man, and was kind of betrayed by him straight up. Um, and it's on the news. We're in the Times, like we're in the New York Times. That was how big the issue was, right? It was a coalition of students of color, BIPOC, who had to tackle this issue. And Ms. Daniels told, I wasn't in attendance at the time, but told Black students to their face that we were rare creatures. It wasn't just kind of like, oh, this is like a passing, like in a letter. Like he told us to our face, essentially. Like if you tell one Black student to their face, you're telling the entire campus of Black students to their face that they're a rare creature, even though we're standing right there in front of you, not as rare as you think we are, because we're 3% of the population, and there could be more if you were to try to recruit more, right?
Yes.
And so that's and it's an excellent point that Carrie makes. Like, where is everybody else? We have to go to one of the divine nines to even see one of each other. Like, we'll go to a party and be like, yo man, I ain't seen you in forever. It's like, yeah, because all you see, you were just swimming in like a big pool of people who are not us. And that could, and as much as it says, student, how, what, like the student, um, experience is an advertisement of how good like the campus is, if they were to just look for like just a couple of seconds, it would show that it's not that great. You know, I've been here for 5 years. Nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. So
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you say, because honestly, I'm an undergraduate. My undergraduate degree is from Penn State, and do you understand how long we've been grappling with this problem? I now have colleagues that are there, and they're still dealing with it years and years later. One of the things I will say, going to Penn State, I felt very isolated as an African American student. I literally, like, in plant sciences, there was nobody. And it wasn't until I did my master's degree that I really met some Black scientists. They gave me sort of like a vision of, oh, so you can actually make this a career. Now at this point, I'm in my junior year of college. I really didn't know what I was going to do afterward. I didn't even know about grad school at that point. And so I will say that you can't underestimate the power of even hiring qualified Black faculty. I think that if you really want to change the school, that visual, just seeing someone that looks like you doing what it is that you could possibly do, changes your whole dynamic of like what the possibilities are. And so, I've heard different people say it matters, people say that it doesn't matter. I'm going to say, for me as a student, it really mattered just to see somebody that looked like me, that was Black, doing plant sciences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to piggyback off of Dr. Fields, that's why I came to Purdue, is because of Dr. Esters. I met him through a program, and seeing someone Black, in the Department of ASEC made me feel like I would be supported while here, and he has supported me a lot since I've been here and advocated for me during my time here. So representation is extremely important, and like Carrie and Miracle were saying, like, the experience here at Purdue as a Black student, I don't know, coming from a HBCU where I felt so included in, I just felt so supported by everyone on campus. It was just, being at Purdue was just a 180, to be honest with you. Like, I often feel like, is this person going to, support me if I want to do this? Or are they going to view me in a certain way because I'm, Black and I'm a woman in agriculture, things like that, because our representation is so low. So I don't know how they'll view me, but having a Black advisor or Black professor it just brings a level of comfort for Black students. And you just feel supported, and you feel like, as with that Black advisor or Black professor, they understand your struggles and the things you've gone through to get to where you are, and they won't basically judge you or prejudge you, for being in agriculture. So representation is extremely important. But what can Purdue do to be more diverse and inclusive? I feel like we focus on diversity so much that we kind of forget about inclusion. You can recruit for Black students to come here like they recruited for me, but I just don't feel included here. Like, I don't, the only time I really feel included is OMP with Dr. Morris's office. Honestly, that's it. Like, if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would still be at Purdue, to be honest with you. I probably would have left and went somewhere else. But I feel like we need to focus on inclusion right now and making it more of an inclusive space for the Black students you have now, before you keep going and recruiting more Black students to come here. And then, like Carrie was saying, like retention rates, things like that, like, they're not good here at Purdue for Black students. And it's like, why is that? It's because we don't have a sense of belonging here. But that ties back to the history of Purdue, because was it like the 50s or 60s? The Black students had to sleep in like the attics and things like that. They couldn't even sleep in the dorms. We have to go back to the history of Purdue and how Black students were treated back then. And kind of, we have our dorms now, but we still don't feel included on campus.
Sure.
Can I ask a question just to of the students that are here? Because a lot of times when we're describing what we want, don't always know what that looks like. So what things would make you feel more included as students? Can you give me some examples of those?
Yeah, so first, I would say it would start with Purdue saying Black Lives Matter. And yes, I'm gonna go there because it shouldn't be it as much as Purdue wants to advocate for being a diverse and inclusive campus, and they want to increase their um, Black student population. If that was the case, why is it that you won't say it? Why is it that there's subsections of Purdue saying it, such as like housing and dining, or whoever it was that has said it already, maybe athletics as well. But why is it that the head of Purdue, or maybe the board of trustees, or whoever at the top, cannot come as one unit of Purdue University and say Black Lives Matter? That's where it starts for me. Because until you say that and you show me that, you really are telling me that you don't really care about me being here. You just want me to hear to, you only here so I can finish, so you can say, yeah, we got another one through. That's what, yeah, that's how I feel.
That's a really good response, and it's interesting because one of the things in the multicultural office, I asked for some data, not about the number of Black students. I wanted to also know the number of Black American students, and so we think that our number is okay. When we look at Black American students, it totally dives.
No, that's true what Carrie said. I remember last summer when they finally brought spotlight to Black Lives Matter, because it's been around for years, but they finally brought spotlight to it in the media, and the president didn't say anything, and we're all talking about how they address, the discrimination that some, people were experiencing because of COVID, how people were getting attacked because they're of Asian descent, but they addressed that, but when it came to the protest and BLM, it was dead. Like, like we're supporting the Asian Americans and they deserve that. They deserve that support. But what about us? Like, like we we go unnoticed, and it can be hurtful, honestly, and that makes me feel like I don't belong and I'm not supported. But luckily I have an advisor, Dr. E, who's so supportive during this time, and he completely understands that I can go to him and talk to him. But I think about other students who don't have that. They don't have an advisor who they can go and just tell them how they're feeling. And I'm not doing good, mentally not okay right now. But I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be more recognition of the hardships that some students go through.
Wow, thanks for sharing.
I have a question. We have lots of questions coming in. So I'll ask this question here. I'm curious about the term queer. What is the definition of this term now?
Good question. There is no definition. Queer has been around for a long time, and there's people see that it's been a reclamation of a slur, but it's been around since before it was a slur. Um, so queer, for a lot of people, it can mean different things, right? So it can mean an umbrella term for the LGBTQ community. It's just how you want to identify. It can be, I identify as genderqueer, meaning personally, I don't identify as a man or a woman, but my gender is something that is different. And so queer just means different. And that's how some people use it. Some people who do have a label within the LGBTQ community, like lesbian, gay, bisexual, they will use the term queer to show that they're different in some way. Some people do not like the term at all. Like, do not use it for me because I have a bad experience with it, whatever. Um, so there is no solid definition for it. But what I will say is that it is still a very valid and very real identity that people will use. It is still a very palpable adjective that people will use. So it's a very, very good question. There's a lot of think pieces on it. Think Judith Butler does some really good stuff on gender and performativity and things like that, um, as well as Zora Neale Hurston, uh, right? So just it's really something to think about. personally, as if you are somebody who is a cisgender straight person, listen to other people when they say like I am queer. Is like, don't ask them, oh, what that means, unless they are open to answering that question, because you know it's a form of labor to explain something about your identity. So I hope that kind of answered that question.
Absolutely. I think this is a great one because I think that there are so many people, as you guys know, and Victoria just said, Black Lives Matter has been around for a lot of years, and it just now came to light. So this next question says, what advice would you give to white people who are just now becoming woke, who want to support people of color in the struggle against inequality?
Hey, Carmen, can I stop for 1 second?
Yeah.
I want to answer this question. And I want to answer it.
So you've been waiting for it to come up in the conversation. I know you, girl. I know it.
One of the things I think is really interesting is that oftentimes white communities like to ask communities of color, marginalized communities, hey, what can I do to help you? And one of the things I like to say is that some of the earliest critiques of white supremacy, white power structure was done in the early 1900s. W.E.B. Du Bois, an amazing scholar, wrote a great series of articles, couple great books, Souls of Black Folks, Souls of White Folks, which is one that a lot of people don't know. There's tons of research because just as Miracle was just saying, it's the emotional labor that you're asking someone to do. It's like, hey, your house is on fire. Talk to me about the belongings that you had in it. Talk to me about the impact of the fire on your life. We would never do that. Like, we know that when we're working with women who have been sexually assaulted, we don't say, hey, tell me all about the rape. Like, that's bad practice, like all day, twice on Sunday. But we continue to do this as a community, and I get where it's coming from, right? And so one of the things I like to recommend is like, it's a very broad statement. What can I do to help you?
Well, and I think it is, like you said, it is coming from a very, I think people are coming from a very concerned point, but they're not sure how to approach that. And I think this is why it's so great for all of you to tell us this.
And so I one of the things I just say is like, I have to do this myself. You know, like there are things I need to learn more about being a better support person for the LGBTQ community. I'm never going to go to Miracle and be like, yo, tell me about your life. I'm gonna read some books. I'm gonna do some work, read some articles, and then I'm gonna go out there and try and give it a shot. And then if Miracle's like, yo, Ayana, you screwed up, I'll be like, my bad. Let me regroup, go back to the board and try it again. And I think, especially during times of like really high stress levels, I think it puts an additional layer, especially with students. Because a lot of people, I know we asked you all to sit on this panel, thank you very much. But like, I want to challenge all of us as professionals, faculty and staff, community partners, like, what is it that we're doing in our lives to make sure that we're learning about what we need to learn about? Because I think that's the piece, is there's no one answer. Like, I, as a Black woman from Southern California, have a very different lived experience than Victoria. We're both from the great Republic of California. However, like, we're from two different areas. We had two different experiences. And like, I can't tell you what it's like for her. I can tell you what it's like for me. And so we're not a monolith. There's a thread that links our lives, and that's slavery and our experiences in the United States. But even there it stops, right? Because I'm dark. My sister is very fair-skinned. Miracle is also very fair-skinned. Our experiences, not the same. I'm a woman. Carrie is a man. Very different experiences, right? So all of these things, we have to recognize that like there's no one experience. And so I would always say, read some books. Also, my job literally is to talk to people about this. So you can feel free, send me an email. Like, I talk to people all day, 9 to 5, that's my work hours, right? So if you have some questions that you're like, I don't understand this, hit me up during my work hours, because that's what they pay me to do for the university. But outside of my work hours, I may or may not want to talk about it. But 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I am your woman. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt y'all.
No, thank you, Ayanna. That's great. That's
comes
great.
up, I was like, stop asking. With love.
Yeah, and I can say I definitely can hear Ayanna's point. And people do come from a place of sincerity, especially, you know, I had a lot of people, colleagues, friends, students reach out to me, especially when things with Black Lives Matter were at their height, different corporations, and it really wanting to figure out, like, what can I do as a person? Because it does hit people a certain way. And to some degree, some, I will say, of my white colleagues felt rather helpless, aside from getting out to march alongside people. But just reiterating what Ayanna said, that self-education piece is really, really, really important. You know, this past year, I had to begin educating myself on investing in stock. So I learned, I keep learning different things about it. And so, you know, we challenge you that same way, you know, read as much as you can, learn more even about Black history. I had a colleague who kind of got into a little debate because he was trying to understand why in the world it was a good idea to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. And I said to him, I said, she is an American hero. And I said, hey,
Oop, I think we lost her.
I want to pick up on the Harriet Tubman one. Like, as we learned at our speaker, we had a panel on Tuesday. That is also a very highly contested move. And I would agree wholeheartedly with the queer and trans panel that we had on Tuesday. Like, don't try to commodify people. And I think that's what we see happening in the community. Like, we cherry pick folks that we're like, oh, we want to hold this person up because they did something great, but we don't recognize the entirety of their lives. We just want to pick this one thing. And so, you know, I personally don't, and I know Dr. Fields may have another perspective. Like, I personally don't want to see her on money, considering what she stood for and the work that she did. That's an insult. That's a whitewashing of a woman who was a warrior. And but that's my perspective.
Yeah, so I can come back in. And so I think it was more so not so much the act of putting her on the bill. For me, it was, he didn't know the history. And so, you know, whether she went on her bill or not, he had no idea what Harriet Tubman did. And he is a grown white man. So that was my thing. I'm asking myself, you know, it is essential that people take the honest to go and educate themselves about the role of Black people in this country, because I dare to think that if that education takes place and you dig in and you find out on your own, you will not have any problems, if you're going to be authentic, with anything that Black people are encouraging or asking for. Because there's so much that's been taken, and in many cases, all Black people are asking for is not to be above, but simply equity. You know, how many white people can say, you're my equal? Are you ready to say you're my equal? Because in the sight of God, or if you don't believe in God, you know, the sight of nature, we're equal. And that's the journey that has to take place.
I just want to thank you guys so much for this conversation. It was very, you know, on the edge of my seat. I was like, ooh, you know. I do want to say, I mean, there's Sarah Eason. I think that's how you say your last name. You make a really good point. Google is free, for the most part. You know, if we have access to Zoom, we have access to Google, right? So do that. I do also want to say there is an area I just want to say this with caution. When you do go and do have those resources and you do all that reading, and you come back to somebody in real life, and you have something to say or you want to discuss something, and they say something that's, you know, not necessarily doesn't always line up with what you've read, do not correct them when they're trying to tell you something different, right? Or if they're trying to say something like, there's a difference between like saying, oh yeah, a black person saying racism doesn't exist, and you can, you know, have that discussion. But if they're saying, if you've read something and you haven't necessarily touched on another topic, like if you come to me and say, well, actually, you know, queer means this, or well, actually black means this, right? And then, you know, actually, W.E.B. Du Bois is my cousin. Do not talk to me, right? Like about what he has to say, because it's literally my family culture. So it's kind of like you have this discussion, but you have it to learn. You do not have it to correct. And then if you're educating somebody else, make sure the person that you're educating is somebody who probably hasn't done that reading, or like if you want to have this discussion, like just just have a discussion. And the correction piece comes in if it's like way out of pocket, you know, if it's just like way, and you can tell, and I trust you to trust your gut with that, but just make sure you're not overstepping with your, you know, your self-education with somebody else's experience.
Excellent. We've got a lot of questions down here, and some of them I feel like we've kind of answered throughout it, just with different ones, but we will still go ahead and see how we can. I know one question that's been asked a couple different times is, what can we do to make students feel more included? And I know we kind of talked about, you know, what the president did and things like that, but, you know, if we're talking about the grassroots and working from the bottom up, like I'm on the floor, you know, I'm down here. I'm not in the president's office, nor do I ever want to be up there. But what do we do to make students feel more included? You know, maybe in the College of Ag, maybe in the College of HHS, at the university in general. It's a tough question, I'm sure, because as you said, I mean, it feels like we focus so much on diversity, and we say diversity, equity, inclusion, but where does that inclusion piece come in? It seems to be the piece that falls off.
Yeah, for me, it ties back to what Dr. Field said earlier about more Black faculty, because when we see that representation, that makes us feel like, okay, then, you know, we are included in this department, you know, the department of ASEC. When I saw Dr. E, I felt like, okay, I'll be included. And ASEC has done a good job of being more inclusive with minority students, I can say that. But I feel like representation is number one. Speaking from my personal experience, going from a predominantly Black space to a predominantly white space, representation has been key.
I've got a question here that says, is it time for staff and faculty to formulate communication to require a statement from the higher admin that acknowledges Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why didn't y'all do that yet? Where y'all been? Yeah, y'all should have done
I
that
think it is.
a long time ago. And I know like y'all are doing it, like, and you guys are doing some work with the students, and I know y'all are busy, right? But y'all are on their payroll too. That's a power that we pay the university, and we also pay y'all, by the way.
Yes,
but the
do.
university,
You do.
Yes, you do.
So like so the thing is, so yeah, like it's been time, a long time ago.
And kind of to add to that, one of the things that I found interesting when I first got here is that all of the like diversity, equity, and inclusion training is almost optional. So I'm like, if you're trying to move the bar, it's always the people that are already interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion that attend these different trainings. But the people that really need it don't come. So I don't even
Absolutely.
understand like the whole idea of why is this stuff optional if as a culture we're trying to move somewhere?
That's a great point. And of all the advocacy and things around surrounding diversity and inclusion that I've been doing, I have not once heard anybody even touch on the trainings being optional. So I just want to thank you for bringing that to my attention, because that's
Yeah,
going to be a
because
fix.
honestly, at other universities, I'm talking to colleagues, and it is not an option. It's like,
That's
to be a
very
part
important.
of this part of this community, we are moving in one direction, and everybody will sit down and do X amount, period. And it's part of it, literally is part of some of their professional development plans. So yeah, just interesting.
Dr. Fields, I would add, I think I want to challenge us also to, like, I put a book in the chat, why are all the Black kids sit together in the cafeteria? The answer to that question is because the white kids sit together and exclude the Black kids. That's the point of the whole book, right? And so one of the things I would challenge us to do is to reframe how we think about diversity, right? So our campuses, our communities look a particular way because they were built to look that way. It's not because Black students did something or Latinx students did something or queer students did something. The white majority, they built something. And so I challenge us to really start to think about, what does it really mean to be a Boilermaker? Right? So like, we talk about, oh, we are excellent in this, we're excellent in this, we're also hella racist. West Lafayette is a former sundown town in a state with a whole lot of sundown towns. Like, the Green Book, old school Green Book, essentially tried to have you avoid the state of Indiana. They called it Clandiana. That's real. And so how, when we think about what we're doing and how we're trying to shift things, it's critical that at some point we do some introspection and understand what we're doing. And I think especially within the College of Agriculture at HHS, we have a very insidious history. When we look at health and human services with marginalized communities, we look at agriculture with marginalized communities, it's not pretty. And that is not something we ever want to look at. We're always like, move forward. We want to see what we can do, which is great. But if you don't clean out a wound and you slap a Band-Aid on it, it becomes infectious, and then you get gangrene and then you die. So at some point, like, the gangrene is in our structure, it's in our system. We could either cut it off at the ankle and save the leg, or we could wait until it gets into our central nervous system and kills us, which is kind of like, in my opinion, like what we're struggling with and wrestling with as a country. What are we willing to get rid of? And so if we can't look at ourselves critically, like, we're not going to come up with any solutions that are going to be lasting and sustainable, because we're not actually going to be addressing the fact that there's gangrene in the system.
Carmen, you're muted.
Still on mute.
Sorry about that. So I think a lot of us that have been at Purdue, I was at Purdue before, as a student is what I'm saying, but so many of the people that come to Purdue are from these very small, all white farm communities. And, Ayana, you and I have had several conversations about this before, but it's all in how your parents raised you. When you're in that kind of community, it's so hard to get others to be, you can advocate and you can talk to your friends, but when their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and their sisters and brothers all instill this in them, this hatred for anybody that doesn't look like you, it's so hard. And they come to school and they stay in their own little groups. They do exclude everybody that doesn't look like them, that's not a white male or not a white female, because that's what they've been taught by so many people. And it's like, until we can start getting to that, I mean, and I don't say, there's people in my hometown that are still like that to this day. I know whenever I take friends of mine home that are people of color, I'm always warning them that it's a small white town. They're like, Carmen, we're used to this. To me, that's something I have to think about. When I take people home, I want to warn them where we're going. They're safe, I think, but that's the thing. I can't guarantee that. And it's so sad to be But I think a lot of students that we have here are from those communities where their parents and their grandparents and everybody around them has always instilled this hatred for somewhere. You know, how do we change that? I mean, where do we start with that to change that? I think that's where we got to start in order to even begin to get Purdue in general to be any kind of more of a diverse and inclusive environment for people. So I have, let's see what we have. These are a lot. There's a lot of things that people are suggesting to read in the chats. We have, how do diverse students or students of color determine the institutions that they wish to attend?
Oh, I can
So,
speak for my oh, go ahead, Claire.
yeah, you got it. You go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, for me personally, it was funding. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Purdue gave me a fellowship. They paid for everything. I said, okay, well, and then I had Dr. E's support. So I was like, all right, then I'll go. It was funding, number one for me, funding, and then making sure I had the support here at Purdue. But I know we try to do a lot of more diverse fellowships and assistantships. And I do appreciate that about Purdue. They do a lot of diverse fellowships. So if you come from an MSI, you qualify for this one fellowship. And I feel like that's amazing. That's great. But again, the support while you're here is even more important, you know, with getting funding.
Yeah, all I was gonna say was, for me personally, it was funding as well. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the program, but it's called 21st Century Scholars. It's a Indiana-based program, so with that, I can go to any public school in Indiana, public university or college in Indiana, tuition free. So that for me definitely propelled me to come to Purdue. Purdue was an option for me just because I had a friend here who was definitely advocating for Purdue. And then once it came down to my final options, some of the schools were private schools. So then Purdue just was like the top choice. But of course, with all that being said, I was also looking at, I believe the website's called Niche, I think, just like ranking the colleges of Indiana and seeing for psychology, what was the top schools in Indiana as well. So just personally for me, that went into it. But I know some of the kids that I've mentored from my high school or just have talked to from my high school, they're starting to look into where am I going to go to school at that I'm going to feel most comfortable. So like that's where this new generation is really gravitating towards, like, and it's really coming down to where are there more Black people, because they don't want to go to these other sundown towns. Especially, I know one of my friends who was looking into DePaul University. I think it's in Greencastle, Indiana, but was quickly turned away just by reviews of the school and stuff like that. As far as racial incidences has happened in that area and just on that school's campus in general. So for me, that's what it is. But I know for this upcoming generation, it's really coming down to where is there more people that look like me.
I'll just put in my personal experience here of not getting the choice to come to Purdue. It was a forced issue because I wasn't accepted to any other school. I applied to 10 schools and wasn't accepted to any of them, which was fun. It's funny now because it's a big mistake that they made. I can say that, right? But not a lot of people have that choice of being able to to uh, go to a university. For me, I was even denied from Purdue, but they gave me an ultimatum of being like, be a guinea pig in summer start, and then you can go to Purdue. Um, and uh, choosing, sometimes choosing isn't a benefit that a lot of students have. It could also be because of how close they are to their family, knowing that their family is a safe haven and they can go back and forth to wherever, wherever their family lives, because you know that'll keep them sane. It could also be because of again, like Victoria said, financials. Being an in-state student, if you're born and raised in Indiana, then you kind of already know some of the things that are to come, and you know what universities to avoid and what universities are the lesser of however many evils. which Purdue can qualify as a lesser of the evils in Indiana. So I will also keep that in mind.
Take myself off mute. Let's see. Someone just wanted to say thank you, panelists, for your response to my question. Very helpful. People are talking about thanks for all the reading recommendations. I believe all Purdue Extension employees are now required to go through navigating difference training. Someone said white folks can begin exploring their internalized racism with me and white supremacy. That's one of them that they've recommended. I don't see any more questions unless I've missed one. Ayana, do you know if I've missed any?
Actually, really quick.
Go for it.
That comment about Purdue Extension, what exactly is the Purdue Extension? Was it staff, or what exactly is that?
Sure. Do we have any Purdue Extension folks on here that would like to take that question?
Hi, this is Sarah, and I'm a Purdue Extension educator. I work in Johnson County. And I didn't catch all of the question, Carrie. I'm sorry. Could you repeat it?
No, you're fine. I was just wondering what exactly makes someone a Purdue Extension, I guess, employee.
Sure. Well, our director would say we're the best kept secret in Indiana because so many people don't know what Extension is, unfortunately. But I work in a county educating people on agriculture and natural resources. There are other people that work on community development, health and human sciences, 4-H and youth development. So lots of different areas where we're out in all 92 counties educating people. Then there are some people that are campus folks that have an extension specialist appointment. So maybe they're teaching some classes as a professor, but they're also doing research and working on websites or publications that we then use in the county offices to give information to people all over Indiana.
Okay, got you. And the reason why I asked that, because I don't know if it was you or not, but whoever it was had said that they were required to do the difference training, which is great. But now, so I was really just wanting to know for my own personal record. So for when I contact Dr. Gates asking why this training is not required, I have my ducks in a row. So thank you for that.
And can I piggyback on that for just a second? I'm Gina. I'm an educator as well. So just to give you a broad perspective of extension, every state has extension service because of their land-grant universities. That extension looks different. So we're the 1869 institution. Your African-American institutions also have extension services, as do your Native American institutions. But we just all look very different in terms of how we bring research out to the community. So just for your knowledge, we all look a little bit different.
Yeah, as exactly as Gina was saying, like extension is vast, and the Navigating Difference program, I told Carrie I could talk to him more about it. If anybody else wants to learn more about it, I can talk to you about that, as well as our Coming Together for Racial Understanding program. So it is, Dr. Gates should know about these things, because I know I've talked to him about, our office has talked to him about some of these things, but these are all great opportunities for folks to get involved. So.
Well, and I think what Carrie's even saying is, that's an option. So it's almost always the same people that go to these, right? Is that what you're talking about, Carrie, is wanting to kind of like make it to where it's that everybody on campus needs to have diversity training as a requirement?
Yeah, that's correct. That's exactly what I was getting at.
And all extension staff have to go through it, at least Navigating Difference, which is the first step in the conversations around differences and stuff. So
yeah, and if I heard Carrie right, he was just he wants to have his ducks in a row when he does talk to Dr. Gates about people not having diversity training as a requirement only, but then he can say, well, extension educators have it, so why not everybody else type of thing? So
exactly, you got me.
Carrie, I'm gonna recommend that you set up a meeting with Dr. Pamela Morris. She's in the Office of Multicultural Programs, which is the office I work for. Set up a meeting with her. to talk about like diversity, equity, inclusion at Purdue. The College of Ag has had our diversity office. It's been around for a very long time, and she started it. So she's got a very long understanding, of the complex history with diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives at Purdue University. So she may be also a good person for you to chat with before you go into your meeting with Dr. Gates, so you can get some different things together. And I'd also recommend Lowell Kane at the LGBTQ Center, because they do that was a whole nother bailiwick of issues that they had to go through to get that center up and running the way that it is now. And so I think if you pull all of these different folks, and Falika Hostine Bryant, and also Renee Thomas. So, I mean, I would chat with all of these folks, I think, and then you'll be able to get a better collective understanding of what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually looks like at Purdue, so that when you go to him, you can be properly armed to engage in those conversations. Because Dr. Gates is very, very smart. And so you'll have step in there. So I want you to be fully prepared.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'm gonna email you right now. Thank you, everybody who had a say in that too.
Does anybody else have any last questions before we're nearing the end, so we're at 1:25, just a few minutes left. Again, right now, I just want to take the opportunity to thank everybody that has joined us today in listening. And I just can't thank Victoria, Carrie, and Miracle enough for all of your insight that you've led us to and the perspectives. And thank you again for joining us today. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you all for having me.
I would also add, Carmen, so this week was great, but this is not the end of the conversation.
Correct.
So this week starts conversations and starts opportunities for learning. We also have some different groups that we offer within the College of Agriculture. We offer a White Allies and Accomplices talking circle, as well as a BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color talking circle. So if folks are interested in joining one of those talking circles, please reach out to myself or to Sky Cantola, and we can help you with that. Also, if folks are interested in starting a talking circle, please reach out to us, because we can also help you start one. So this is not the end, this is the beginning. So
that's right.
Keep it up. And if you want to talk, I'm always available. Oh, not always, but 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I don't have meetings.
Paul?
Oh, nothing for me. Just thanks to the panel for their continued patience as a lot of us work through this stuff and try to do a better job. And gosh, that's all I got. I'm sorry, I did unmute, didn't I? So
anyway. Oh, you're fine. That's good. Thank you.
Just really quick, I will also say, as somebody who has led an organization for quite a few years, it's kind of small. We've done some really big things in our little time. But if you want to reach out to students specifically, look up some clubs that are offering that have open meetings and things like that. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of LGBTQ clubs. There are a lot of clubs that are Black. There are a lot of BIPOC clubs. There are all these types of things. And the resources are available to you. Students have been doing work like this for a very, very long time. If I just remind you guys, the BCC is the only reason the BCC is the thing is because of students. So just keep in mind that we are we're powerful, but we can be more powerful with your support. So thank you all for joining too.
All right, I think that sums up our day today. Like Ayana said, it's just the beginning. We're going to keep moving forward. So Victoria, Carrie, Miracle, I know you all have my email. I think Ayana should be copied on most of those emails we had, but if you have any questions or something someone said here today or someone you need to reach to that they've told you, let me know and I can get that information to you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.